I've been hunting for a clean copy of this one for a while and haven't pulled the trigger yet. And today, I want to show you exactly why I'm watching this book. Batman 357. Killer Croc's first appearance, 1983. Let me break down what this issue is, what it's worth, and whether now is the time to buy Batman 357, March 1983. Written by Gerry Conway. Art by Don Newton. Here's the context you need. By 1983, Batman had just come out of a really interesting period. The Neil Adams reinvention in the 70s had pulled the character away from the campy TV show era, made him darker, more gothic. Readers were hungry for that, and Conway came in wanting to build something slow, a proper crime saga, where the threat builds across multiple issues before it pays off. That's exactly what this is. Issue 357 is the first chapter of what collectors call the Killer Croc saga. And the smart move Conway makes, the thing that makes this issue work, is that Croc doesn't show up in a villain costume. He's introduced as a mob boss, a shadow, other criminals talking about him in hushed voices. You feel the threat before you ever see the character. Don Newton on art. This matters, and we'll come back to it. Newton was genuinely exceptional. Passed away in 1984, just a year after this issue. His run on Batman is criminally underappreciated. Why does this book matter to collectors? First appearance, full stop. Croc, Waylon Jones, makes his debut right here. He's gone on to become one of Batman's most recognizable villains. Animated series, the Arkham games, the S-Squad film. Every version of Croc traces back to this issue. Now, there's a nuance serious collectors know, and casual buyers sometimes miss. Issue 357 is Croc's first appearance, but he's not on the cover in a way that screams, "This is the one." He's referenced and appears in the story, but the cover doesn't feature him prominently. That actually suppresses the price, compared to books, where the first appearance and the iconic cover image are the same thing. Worth knowing before you buy. The Don Newton angle adds real significance. His run on Batman in this era is short. He died young, which makes every issue he drew a finite commodity. You're not going to get more Don Newton Batman pages. What exists is what exists. And the storyline itself matters. The Killer Croc arc that starts here runs through the mid-360s and has genuine consequences for the Bat family. This isn't a throwaway villain of the month story. Conway was building something, and issue 357 is the foundation. I'm going to use some raw copy listings I pulled from eBay this week to walk through what you're looking for when you're evaluating a copy of this book. Because condition is everything on a 40-year-old newsprint book. Cover first. The blues and grays on this cover are your early warning system. Newsprint covers from the early 80s will fade and oxidize, especially around the edges. When you're looking at a raw copy, you want the color to look saturated and even. If it looks washed out or the edges have gone tan, walk away or price accordingly. Spine. This is where most copies of this book fall apart. Literally, you're looking for spine roll and spine splits. A spine split shows up as a white stress line running along the fold. On this listing right here, you can see a slight roll and some color breaking. That's going to cap the grade. Staples. Always check your staples on Bronze Age books. Rust bleeds through and stains the interior pages, and that kills your grade fast. In photos, look for any orange or brown discoloration near the staple holes. Pages. This is harder to evaluate from photos, but sellers will often describe page quality. You want off-white to white, supple pages. If a listing says tanning or brittleness, that's a book that will grade low, regardless of how the cover looks. The lesson here, on a book like this, condition separates a $20 raw copy from a $60 raw copy, and a $60 raw copy from a potential 150-plus graded book. Know what you're buying. Let's talk numbers. I pulled eBay sold listings this week. Here's what the market is actually doing on Batman 357. Graded copies, CGC. A 9.8 has sold in the $400 to $500 range. That's your ceiling right now. A 9.6 is moving in the $150 to $250 range. A 9.4 lands around $80 to $120. Below 9.0 on a graded copy, the premium over raw starts to shrink fast. You're paying for the slab more than the grade at that point. Raw copies, clean raw copies, in solid 7.5 to 8.5 range, are selling anywhere from $25 to $60. That gap between a $40 raw copy and a $150 graded 9.6 is where the opportunity lives. If you can find a raw copy with legitimate high-grade potential and get it pressed and submitted, the trend. Killer Croc is steady. He doesn't have the explosive speculator energy of a first appearance tied to a confirmed MCU casting, but he's consistent. Every time there's any news about a Croc adaptation or rumor, you see a spike in sales and price. The underlying demand is real. This isn't a character people are losing faith in. Right now, the market on this book is calm, which, depending on your strategy, is either a problem or an opportunity. If this kind of breakdown is useful, hit subscribe. I do this every week. So where do you actually find this book? eBay is your most liquid option. There are usually several raw copies listed at any given time. You're paying market rate, but you have selection, and you can see photos before you buy. I'll link a search in the description so you can see current listings. Comic shows are worth checking if you go to them regularly. Older dealers sometimes have Bronze Age books priced from years ago and haven't adjusted for the current market. That's where you find the deals, but it takes legwork. Local comic shops with back issue bins are hit or miss, but when you hit, the prices can be well below eBay. At raw prices right now, this is a buy for Batman collectors and Croc fans. Legitimate first appearance, accessible price point, real character staying power. If you're purely speculating, this is a watch. Put it on your saved search on eBay and wait for a media catalyst. The upside on a pop is real, but the timeline is uncertain. If you need explosive short-term returns, there are hotter books right now. But 357 is the kind of book that disappears into a long box for a decade and comes back at a higher price. I like it long-term, which is exactly why I'm still looking for my copy. Batman 357, first appearance, Killer Croc. Still on my want list, but not for long.